But ladies and gentlemen, please give an Olin Innovation Lab welcome to his first time here, right? So he's an oil virgin, you know, maybe
Thanks, Dorn, for the introduction. So it feels good to be back in an engineering school. It's been a number of years since I graduated from one. But I do remember learning a lot of formulas. But you know what I don't remember is learning about the innovation process. And I'm not talking about how to innovate. I'm talking about how to track, gather, sort of move it through. And so what you're going to see here is sort of a case study, on-the-job training of what I learned and my team learned as we started moving through innovation, gathering innovation, the front end. So we've seen this before, right? Innovate or die. It's the engine, we talked about that, the lifeblood of the economy, the engine that moves the companies forward. Okay, so theoretically, all you need to do is gather those innovations from everybody, find the best ones, and finally, quickly get those innovations to market, right? Get some benefit out of those innovations, because if you don't, you're going to miss those opportunities and your competition will get them instead. Great theory. A wise man once said that the secret to creativity is knowing how to hide your sources. We've heard this too. Now what Einstein actually meant by this was there's no such thing as a brand new idea. All ideas are constructed upon existing ideas. So where do these ideas come from? 3 men on a mountain? No. Right? They come from everybody. They come from the crowd. And the crowd is the people in your company, for example. Right? So the idea is to leverage those resources. And we've been talking about the cloud. Right? The cloud was really about distributed resources. Well, your people are distributed resources. They are your resources, so the key is to leverage them. And we'll talk about how we did that later on. So going back to what I call the pre-Cambrian days, back in the early 2000s, this is what we had at Motorola for innovation tracking. We had a system for gathering patentable ideas. It was a database, collected the ideas, and if you had a patentable idea and it was good, you worked back and forth with your patent attorney, go to the patent office, eventually after many years, value would come out. And it's great, and it worked. And it still works today. But what about the non-patentable ideas? Do those generate any value? Of course they do. Right? There's lots of ideas that are not patentable but could still create value. What are some examples? Internal cost reduction. Great example. We've done that a lot. Process improvement. Either a development process or other kind of processes. Manufacturing processes. External stuff. Product improvements, even incremental product improvements. Not everything has to be a world-changing idea, right? So feature enhancements, new product suggestions, business plan suggestions, new strategies, lots of stuff. Not patentable necessarily, but could bring lots of value. So at Motorola, we had lots of places where you could enter this kind of stuff. Spreadsheets, databases, websites, but they were all over the place. They were everywhere. We like to call it a roach motel. Ideas came in, but they rarely got out. Some of them did get out, and when they did, right, you would get them implemented in this little corner of the world, maybe in some organization or some country, and they benefited that organization or that country, but no one else got any value out of that. And occasionally, you'd have the same work being done elsewhere, right? Same effort, redundant, and maybe they'd succeed too, and again, another little pocket, but no communication. So that really just created a mess and lost ideas. Lots of times, you couldn't track your ideas. They were everywhere. So in 2003, we decided to change that. And we created a system for non-patentable ideas called Think Tank. An internal system we created ourselves, and with that came idea review boards, IRBs. And what these really are people from each organization whose responsibility was to look at the ideas as they came in and move them to the right place. Okay, so they might say it's not a good idea, we're going to reject it, but if it was, they knew exactly who in the organization would be the right person or group to handle that idea and move it forward. Okay, so they had to the social nexus, a social nexus in that organization, that social structure. And of course it was integrated with the patentable system that existed, so that in case an idea came in that ended up being patentable, it would go in there, we handled it in parallel, or in the other direction, if an idea came into that system and it was not patentable, it could still go into our system and move forward. With this, of course, you need to have executive support. It doesn't just exist by itself. It's not going to self-perpetuate necessarily. So you need to have funding on the executive level, and you need to have word of mouth. They have to talk about it. There has to be like, an incentive to keep it moving. And they have to tell the next level people, the product managers, portfolio planners, and so forth, that yes, you're allowed to accept ideas from this system. It's not just System X, customers or wherever you're getting your requirements from. You're allowed to accept ideas from here, and you're encouraged to do so. That's very important. Together, these give us two parallel paths for value creation. So that's what we did back then, and it worked. So we got lots and lots of ideas, lots and lots of ideas. In fact, we have over 16,000 ideas in the system right now. A great success. Or success disaster. Yeah. We were successful, but there's way too many ideas for us to handle. We didn't really anticipate it to be so successful, and we said, well, what are we going to do? What ended up happening was a large backlog started growing. Yeah, ideas started dying, and we missed opportunities. There were situations where competitors came out with ideas that we had thought of years and years and years earlier, but they were just lost in this big pot of all these ideas that no one really prioritized. No one knew how to get the good ones out. So that was our big problem. So we said, what are we going to do? We don't have enough people to look at all these ideas. We could just completely cut the system, erase everything, and start from scratch. We could get more people, but we couldn't. And you really can't get enough people to handle all those ideas. So we said, well, let's stop looking inside of our own little group and look outside of our little box, and that is the rest of the company. Lots and lots of people out there. Let's leverage them. This is leveraging the crowd. So in 2005, we implemented two additions to the system. One of them was a simple voting system where every person could vote on a single idea once. Okay, so you can vote as many times as you want, but only once per idea. And that sort of helps move ideas up and down. And collaboration forums, which is huge because it allows people to actually talk to each other on an open forum for each idea. They can have a little discussion thread and sort of start sussing out the idea. Somebody might have an idea that needs to be fine-tuned. Somebody might see an idea that we're already doing it, or it's already been done. We don't need to, because there's not a lot of communication necessarily across 60,000 people. Okay, so a lot of times people have ideas and they don't know that it's already being worked on. So this helps sort of filter out ideas. It helps prioritize, but it wasn't enough. So in 2007, we created a collective intelligence market, or a decision market, sort of like a prediction market. We call it Think Tank Idea Exchange, or TIX, T-I-X. And we use a system called Foresight Server from Consensus Point as our market engine. It's just a stock market of ideas. And we placed it right in between Think Tank and the review board. So what are collective intelligence markets? Has anyone heard of these? Some? Okay, great. They basically come in two flavors: an event-based market, which is the prediction market, and a non-event-based market, used for decisions. Now, prediction markets have been around for a long time, over 100 years. You've probably heard and seen of them. They've been used to predict presidential elections. The Washington Stock Exchange is one example. Iowa Exchange is another. Hollywood Stock Exchange used to track predict box office successes. So it's been around, very, very good record of success. Inside of a company, these are some examples of what you might use for prediction markets. And this is actually being done today, not by us. For example, you might say product X will ship by December 2010. That would be a stock on the market and people would invest or not, and not. Now for us, we use decision markets, so non-events. There isn't a date at which it either occurred or didn't occur. It's a decision, and it's used to define a strategy or to agree to get consensus upon something. These are some examples of what you might see. Let's use this technology to develop the following product. Okay, so there's no date. And we're not the only ones doing this, as I mentioned. Lots of other companies, including GE, Qualcomm, and even the Department of Defense is using markets like this internally. So James Surowiecki, who is the author of Wisdom of the Crowd, you might have heard of him, he decided on 4 pillars for decision markets that make them successful. 2 of them have to do with people, and 2 of them have to do with the market itself. So for people, he said they have to be diverse. Okay? You can't have all the people in one place. They've got to be geographically diverse. They have to be organizationally diverse and socially diverse. So you got to get these information from these independent people. Independence and decentralization is another aspect. You don't want people, sort of investing with a crowd of people just because their friends are investing in it that way. You don't want people investing because their boss invested in that way. Okay? And that kind of gets to the next one. The results of a market are aggregated. So you don't see what each person invested. You don't know who invested. It's anonymous. You don't know who invested, and you don't know what they invested in. But you get sort of markers of what's going on with the investment. You get, the stock price. You get volume. You get how many traders are involved. General stuff that gives you an idea of what's going on. And finally, very importantly, you need incentive mechanisms. Why should people do this? What's in it for them? Why should they come back and do more? Yes, it has to be fun. So it's not so simple just to put a market together. You have to have some goals. So we put together 4 goals for our markets to be successful. The first one, which we needed the most, was to be able to get a filtered, prioritized list of ideas. The second one was to reduce the disposition time. That means how much time it took from an idea coming in to somebody making a decision about the idea. And the next, also something very important, side benefit, but really important, increase the collaborations. We want to get people talking to each other, with each other, communicating, arguing even. We call this serendipitous exploration. People go to the market and they find accidentally the fact that someone else is working on something, or you see an idea that's about a technology you're working on and you might be able to contribute. It's not in your requirements that you have to contribute, but you want to, because you want them to succeed. You're all part of the same company. And finally, you want to make sure that the ideas that win in the market are actually the ones that the review boards, which come later, are going to say, yeah, we're going to pursue. Okay, so that shows that the market is successful. So how does our market work? It's relatively simple. Ideas which have enough votes get into the market. They're traded for a period of time. People get on the market. They get $100,000 in play money, market money. They trade, they buy, they sell, they do whatever. They make decisions because they have a limited resource pool. And then at the end of 30 days, the stock goes out, and it gets basically decided upon based on its performance from the market. And then it goes on to the review boards. Okay? No guarantee that a winner in the market is going to be pursued, but that's what we want to happen. So we talked with other companies like GE, Qualcomm, Best Buy, who had this already in-house. And we asked them, what kind of problems did you guys have? And we looked at those problems, we looked at how they solved the problems, and we implemented our own test market initially to see if we would have the same problems and what other things we would see. From all this, we came upon 5 problems that need to be sort of resolved before you implement a market of your own. The first one is called tournament behavior. And what that is basically is when people trade at the very end of trading cycle, like they know the stock's about to be judged, and they might say, oh, I don't think that this one's going to win. You might have liked it before, but now I don't think it's going to win, so I'm going to jump out of it. So like a whole bunch of people just jump out of it and go into something they think is going to win. Not because they think the idea is good, but because they want to win. It's hard to really avoid, but you need to do something about that. So one thing we do is we don't use the final price as one of the deciding factors. We use a volume-weighted average price, which basically means how did it do over the last 15 days. Okay, so you can't change the average over 15 days in the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 day of trading. And that's good. And that works well. And we also pay out based on that VWAP. The second problem is called the Keynesian beauty contest problem. Okay? What that means is that people trade based on what they think other people will do. Not based on their own knowledge and thoughts and ideas, but based on what they think others will do. Again, this is a pretty common human trait. Difficult to avoid, but the way you try to avoid it is design the market properly, tell people why they should be trading, and give the right incentives. We also keep the details of the winning formula a secret. In other words, we tell them what goes into it, which is here, but we don't tell them the actual formula. So you can see up here, you can see there's coefficients. We don't divulge what those are, but we do tell them what goes into it. So the VWAP is 1, I mentioned that. The second one is outstanding shares. How many shares are being held out there because people like the idea? The number of traders is important too, right? You don't want the stock to have 2 people trading it. And finally, the average daily volume is an important indicator because you want to make sure that there's been activity over the lifetime of the stock. Third problem, the millionaire problem. That is where some people do really well in the market, and they end up controlling the market, right? Because they have a lot of power, a lot of money, and they can move stocks. Again, another hard thing to resolve, but what you do is you, again, design the market a little bit differently to help the people who don't have a lot of money also be able to get in. Keep the prices low when the stocks come in, add allowances periodically, and you limit how much investors can invest in any one stock. Okay? That was something we added on our own. Also, you've got to keep them. You can't let the market start and go on forever because the people who do very, very well will continue to do very, very well forever because they have a lot of money and it just builds upon itself. So you do have to cut the market. We have a market cycle, which I'll talk about in a minute. Pessimists win problem. So what that means is this kind of market is for identifying the best ideas. So not all the ideas are going to win. Right? Obviously. So if you were a good trader, you would say, I'm just going to short all of the stocks because most of them are going to lose. Only a few will win, right? And you would be right, and you would do well. So yeah, again, you have to design the rewards a little bit differently. We give an extra payout, so we want to encourage people to hold on positively to stocks they like. In other words, go long on them. So we give an extra $20 in addition to the $100 you might get if you win for people who are holding on to stocks that actually win. And we even pay out people who have shorted, but not the very high payouts. Finally, the stale market problem. The baby is really bored. This is a common problem because why would people want to come back to your market? Right? They're busy, they have other things to do during the day. There's a bunch of things you need to do. You need to advertise. You need to tell people what's in it for them. What's in it for you? Right? Why should you come to the market and play? And it is a game, but it's a good game and it helps the company. That's the important piece. And you need to provide what's in it for me, the WIFM. Why would I go and then trade? What's in it for, what do I get out of it? I get incentives, I get rewards, I get recognition, whatever it is that you give. It needs to be clear. And as I mentioned before, we have a market cycle, okay, to keep it fun, to keep it moving. And what we do is we add stocks every week, so like 5 stocks every week, and they stay for 30 days. So 30 days from when they were added, they get removed. They get 30 days in the market. So as you see here, we have a 3-month cycle. In the first 2 months, ideas come in, new ideas, 5 stocks every week. And in the second 2 months, right, the February and the middle and the last, we start judging them. They leave the market. So in the last month, no ideas are added, and the ones that are expiring from February, for example, would be leaving the market, and at the end, all the stocks are gone. Everyone's been paid off. We clear everything and start fresh. So all the traders get reset back to 100,000, where they started from.
So you go Bolshevik every quarter.
Yeah, exactly. So, what were the results? Everyone wants to hear that, right? We first talked about what James Surowiecki mentioned in distribution of the people. And you can see here that our traders come from all over the world. Organizationally, they're also diverse across our different organizations within Motorola. And the ideas also come from all over the place. And you don't want all the ideas to come from, Harvard Square. You want them to come from everywhere because people have different concepts. And that is happening. First goal was to filter and prioritize ideas, right? So we start off with the ideas that have votes. Only the ones that have 5 or more get in the market. Of those, only a few of them win, right? In our case, it's about 15% of them win. So all of a sudden, we have this tip right there, which is our first priority ideas. The ones that have been not only voted, but selected as winners in the market. They're at the top. They get identified immediately by the review board. As soon as they can, they disposition those first. Then they go on to maybe the ones that didn't win, and then further on to ones that have a lot of votes and stuff like that. So there's a good prioritized list right away. So what about disposition time? That was one of our biggest problems. Ideas sat for a long time. Before ticks, the average was 6 months to disposition an idea. After ticks, under 100 days. So a big improvement in disposition time, and if you look at just the ones in ticks about 100 days, but it actually had a halo effect because all this extra visibility into these ideas actually got more people looking at more ideas and talking about more ideas, and overall for the entire market, for the entire system as a whole, it went down to below 80. In terms of pursue rate, so were the winning ideas in ticks actually pursued by the review boards? Before ticks, only 10% of the ideas actually got pursued. That doesn't mean implemented, it means pursued. Much fewer got implemented, of course. After ticks, of the ticks winning ideas, a quarter were pursued. So that's huge. And overall, this improvement actually brought the market up to about 14% of all the ideas in the system have actually been pursued. Voting. So we're starting to talk about the socialization piece now that was added. As you see, we added it in 2005, but in 2007, when ticks came on, voting really shot up. And that was really good. It's again a sense of more people are participating and viewing. Now, when you do a search on Google and you're looking for things, when you're looking for recommendations about what to buy or whatever it is, you can search Google and get 1 million results, and you may not find a useful one in there. Or you can ask your friends using whatever mechanism you like, Twitter, blogs, email. And it turns out, according to a recent Nielsen study, that about 70% of people trust their peers for online recommendations more than anything else. So, with that in mind, we added a piece into our innovation system for socializing the innovations itself. So this is a typical screenshot without the gray boxes of what a single idea would look like on the market. Okay, over here you would have the title, the description, a graphic, some information about its activity going on right now in the market. But the piece I want to focus on is really the piece right here, the spread the word box. Okay, so we provide a number of ways that you can spread the word about the idea. If you like to tweet, we have an internal microblog system inside the company where you can actually send your tweet out to people. If you'd like to kick it old school, you can send an email to your friends. If you'd like to participate in a discussion, you can do it right from there as well. And we have a social bookmarking system which allows people to tag things with keywords. And keywords get picked up in searches that go across the company. Okay, so if someone somewhere else is searching for something, you have no idea that the market even exists, and they hit upon a keyword that's been tagged, they all of a sudden get pushed into this idea. They could click on this idea, view it, understand what's going on, learn that, oh my God, someone's working on this I didn't even know about. So there's a great relationship building right there.
So is this communication add-on, is that part of the tool you were using, or did you add that in?
We totally added that piece on ourselves.
That's a nice piece of work.
So we talked about the forums. As you see here, we added forums in 2005, but in 2007, when TIX came on, you see the shoot up of the number of posts per idea, and also the threads, the blue line. Email recommendations continues to grow as well. And the backlog. Come on. There you go. I showed the chart before with the backlog up to 2007. As a side effect, unplanned, but happy nonetheless, the backlog started decreasing. Now, why is it unplanned? It's not a goal of TIX to reduce the backlog. It's a goal of TIX to identify the best ideas, right? So it picks out the ones, and the ones that are left over, they're still in that box, but they're a little better prioritized. So we are seeing a good reduction, and that's very good. And that fifth problem of people coming back, we have on the average of 20 traders per day coming back every single day. Not the same 20. Because we actually have over 1,500 traders right now, and 4,000 or so participants. What about risk of return on investment? Yeah, pretty good. We have about a 5 to 10x return on the investment on this. The costs of the system are very low, and the benefits of ideas that have gone through the think tank system, of those that have been implemented, has easily gone a 5 to 10x improvement in return on the investment.
What percentage of ideas pursued by Motorola go through this system versus other channels?
I don't have numbers on that.
So if the CEO comes up with an idea, he doesn't have to subject it to the masses. It just gets done.
It could, yes, absolutely. This is not the only channel, and even the patentable system is not the only channel.
But these are the slow down after Iridium.
These are the main channels that are used. They are the publicly accepted channels, but of course there's several other channels. There's external channels as well. So I couldn't really tell you, but this provides millions of dollars of revenue. This piece is interesting too, because it's the soft pieces, the productivity, the relationship building. It used to be very difficult to and it's still kind of difficult to put a number on this information, but I did find a study that was done 2004, I think, with Caterpillar, and it turns out that the net benefit from a discussion thread was pegged at about $600 net benefit per discussion thread. So based on how many discussion threads we have, and even taking away the ones that are irrelevant, at least $1 million in benefits just from these discussions. Yes?
How did you calculate that?
Well, I took the number of discussion thread forms that we have on the ideas themselves. I removed at least half of them that were probably not useful discussions. And of the rest, multiply by 600. So, what did we learn from this, and what do we recommend? Well, if you're going to implement a market, don't just throw up the market and think it's going to work by itself. You really need to understand, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the back end. So, administration, how are you going to set this up? Is there going to be a market cycle? How often are ideas going to come in? How do you identify which ones are valid? How will you display the idea, right? This is a difficult part. People have ideas, but they may not know how to really put a title on it. A short, concise title, like a tweet, right? Mm-hmm. Less than 140 characters is what we allow. So you have to be able to identify what the value of the idea is in a very short, concise way, and it can't be too technical, because this is exposed to everybody. So it might be a great idea and it could fail in the market because it has to do with, RF, which, maybe only 20%, 10% of the people looking at it even have a clue what it is. What are you going to do? It's not the right way. But there are other channels where you can push your idea. So we do rely on the innovator. When we pursue an idea, we don't call it pursue. We call it innovator pursue. Because we like to emphasize that really the responsibility of the innovator to push that through. You have to make a prototype, or you have to write a white paper, or whatever, a disclosure, whatever you have to do, it's your responsibility. There's no think tank group that sits there and implements ideas that come through. There's no such thing. So it's really your responsibility, and we do provide business coaches and innovation coaches to help that out. But it's an important piece of the market. You have to market your idea. You have to know how to sell it. Trader accounts, what's the initial value of your portfolio, of your bank account going to be, and how much are you going to pay out? How do you define a winning stock? For us, we have that formula that you saw. It might not be appropriate for everybody, but that's what we use, and it seems to work. You have to play with the parameters a little bit. One of the most important things, clarify the reasons for investing. You have to tell them why they should be investing in the stock. It's not because you like the person who submitted it. It's not because you think the graphic is pretty. It has to be for a particular reason. For us, we say, invest in this idea if you think it's going to bring value to Motorola if implemented. Value. And we define what value is. We say it doesn't have to be necessarily monetary. It could be brand value. It could be cost reduction, productivity improvements, all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot of organizational stuff that has to come into play. Again, like I said before, it can't exist in a vacuum. There has to be executive support constantly, funding, and word of mouth. Commitment from the portfolio planners, as I mentioned before, very important. Otherwise, your ideas will slide through and then get dropped. Oh, we can't accept ideas from this. No, we've had that happen. You have to fix that problem. And finally, the Innovation Review Board, those people who are the first in line to look at those ideas, they need to be the right people. You need to identify the right set of people who know their organization, know the people who are more likely to be able to look and improve on the idea and implement it.
How long is the tenure of an IRB board member?
They're not. It's not voted. These people are sort of selected, not even appointed. They're asked. They're requested to join, or they're identified by experts in the field, and they stay as long as they can do it, basically.
Just like the Supreme Court.
Kind of, yeah. Yes, they leave when they leave the company, I guess.
I have a question.
Yes.
How many of the implemented ideas were patented?
Most of the ideas I'm thinking of are not patented, so we have a different system for patent. So, and that's. It doesn't. They don't always coincide. Sometimes they do.
So there's no favoritism if you say this is going to be a patented idea, so we really want to weigh that, and we really want to.
There are situations where an idea comes in through think tank, and we say, you know what, stop. You need to file disclosure. This is a really good one that we could get some coverage, and they go in parallel. As soon as their disclosure is filed legally, we can now bring it back into think tank. And it can be kind of run in parallel. So while we're waiting for the patent to go through, we can continue implementing it. That's happened too. It's not a high percentage. It's low.
And my other question to that is, of the losers, which seems like there are many more of those than there are winners, how often does an employee come forward and say, I want my idea back and I want to go do something on my own?
That has happened, but not as often as you might think. I've seen it personally happen probably a handful of times in the last 5 years, a handful. And there is a process at Motorola. If we really think that we don't want to take that IP at all, completely adjacent or not even adjacent to us, orthogonal, then we would just say, there's a process you fill out, you sign papers, and we give you the idea and go for it. It has happened, but it's not easy on purpose.
Part of what makes an idea impactful is timing. Do you find people that are non-winning ideas resubmit those again and again?
Yes, that has happened. Yes, we do screen for, we have a disposition called filtered, which is right after the none, right before anything happens to this idea. So we have a set of people, including myself, who look at these ideas and say, we've seen this before, okay? And sometimes we see ideas that have happened years ago, were submitted years ago and rejected because it just wasn't the time for the market. And we have sort of a heuristic that says if it's more than, I don't know what it was, 2 or 3 years old, we'll reconsider it. Especially if the original innovators are no longer around or for whatever reason, or maybe the business unit that it was filed to is no longer around. So yeah, we do reconsider ideas even if they are duplicate because times change. It does happen, definitely. Okay, so the 3 takeaways here. Avoid the if you're going to implement a market, avoid those typical market pitfalls that I mentioned, those 5 things. Know what they are, understand how to avoid them. One of the most important things, engage your social network because you won't be able to do it by yourself. And keep them coming back. Because it's going to die very quickly if you don't make it fun and exciting. And you might end up with something like this. So don't do it yourself. For those who can't see, it's a caveman and he has made a wheel. I call my invention the wheel, but so far I've been unable to attract any venture capital. It's a square wheel. So don't try to do it on your own.
Can you give us 1 or 2 examples of great innovations that have made a lot of money for Motorola that followed this process?
I'm not allowed to actually give details, but I can tell you, that we've had a gamut. First of all, TIX itself was an idea that came in through Think Tank. So the whole stock market concept. A lot of internal cost reductions have as well. Product-based innovations have as well. Some of them, the ones that have made a lot of money actually have been on the infrastructure side. So what's happened is an engineer came up with an idea of how to improve an infrastructure box. These are boxes that go into the carrier's back end, right? This is how we can improve throughput, for example. One of them was the throughput idea. Showed it to the customer in-house. Customer loved it. That thing was fast-tracked and implemented, and we got lots of orders because of that.
So cell phone didn't come out of this, for example?
No, this was way after.
No, I'm only teasing.
Oh, a single cell phone?
No, or a consumer feature that I would have heard about, or so it's mostly for improving existing products or processes?
Most of the ideas that come through here are not world-changing. That most of them are incremental. Some of them, I'd say most of them are incremental. Let's put it that way, as far as what the customer sees. Okay, we had one idea. I'll give you one. One idea where a bacteria-resistant coating to a phone that was actually implemented in our item devices. So if you sneeze on the phone and touch your phone, and then you give your phone to your spouse, and then the spouse talks it in. So an antibacterial coating type of thing, that came through Think Tank, for example. Any other questions? Yes?
With your tagging capabilities, in my librarian hat on for a moment, are you seeing a taxonomy grow up around these thousands of ideas?
Yes, we are. Yeah, in fact, we have our tagging system is actually integrated into our Twitter, internal Twitter, so that we use the tags together when we do a search across the entire company. So we have a company-wide search, and it searches both tags, the tags that come through all your social bookmarks and tags that come through the microblogging system. And so, yeah, we are starting to see a lot of convergence, a lot of similarities.
So you don't have a black hole because somebody typed in the wrong terms.
Right. Things get correct, they self-correct as well. You see that a lot.
Randy, thank you very much. That was great.